is a bit of history about a very special old car that was manufactured in England and the body built in Australia. It is one of only 5,000 ever made. It was the 4,000th one made. The car is a 1927 Standard 1428 horsepower. It has now been owned for over 30 years by the Carroll family in Brisbane. The car was sold new in Brisbane by Cars of Britain Limited, based in Adelaide Street. History says it has always been in the Brisbane-Wynnum area. I will tell you about the company that made these vehicles. The car manufacturer was the Standard Motor Company Limited. The company was established by a gentleman called Reginald Charles Maudslay on the 2nd of March 1903. The first manufacturing plant was in Coventry. By the end of 1903, 3 cars had been built and the labour force had then been increased to 25. The increased labour force produced a car every 3 weeks during 1904. It started with a single-cylinder model, which was soon replaced by a 2-cylinder model, then quickly followed by a 3 and then a 4-cylinder models, and in 1905 the first 6-cylinder model. As well as supplying complete chassis, the company found a good market selling engines for fitting to other cars. In 1905, Maudslay himself drove the first standard car to compete in a race. This was the RAC Tourist Trophy, in which he finished 11th out of 42 starters. The company exhibited at the 1905 London Motor Show in Crystal Palace. A London dealer, Sir Charles Friswell, agreed to buy the entire factory output. In 1909, the company first made use of the famous Union Jack flag on the radiator badge. During the same year, the first commercial vehicle was produced, and a 4-cylinder model car was also introduced at £195. This car was the first to be put into large-scale production. 1,600 were produced before the outbreak of the First World War, 50 of them in the final week of car production. These cars were all sold with a 3-year guarantee. In 1914, Standard became a public company. During the First World War, the company produced more than 1,000 aircraft in a new works at Canley that opened on the 1st of July 1916. Civilian car production was restarted in 1919 with models based on pre-war designs. In the early 1920s, saloon bodies were first offered. Previously, all cars had been Tourers. The company was justifiably proud of the modern factory at Canley, boasting in its advertisement, "It is a beautifully lighted and well-aired factory, standing on the edge of a breezy common, away from the city din and smoke." It was about this time, during the early 1920s, that the slogan, "Count them on the road." This also appeared in every advertisement. By 1924, the company had a share of the market comparable to the Austin Motor Company, making more than 10,000 cars in that year. By the late 1920s, profits had decreased dramatically due to the great reinvestment, a failed export contract, and poor sales of the larger cars due to the Great Depression. New smaller designs were developed, and this saved the company. The Standard Motor Company purchased Triumph in 1945 and in 1959 officially changed its name to Standard Triumph. The company continued manufacturing until 1968 after being purchased by British Leyland. This Standard, a 1428 horsepower, is one of only a few known of this model built by Srenborn's motor body manufacturers in Sydney. This makes it a very rare car. It has a Tourer-style body with internal wooden frames. The inline 4-cylinder overhead valve, 13.9 horsepower engine, developing 28 brake horsepower. It has a full pressure fed oil system. It has a very unique style radiator and surround which carries the famous Standard Coventry badge. Engine cooling is by thermosiphon through a finned tube radiator and does not have a water pump. Ignition spark is from a magneto which is driven through the 12-volt generator. It has a twin-plate dry clutch, a 3-speed gearbox. The rear axle are driven through a worm wheel. The car is fitted with steel military-style wheels with 20-inch size tyres. It has 4-wheel internal drum brakes. The instrument panel has a mandatory oil pressure, speedometer, amp meter and light switches. The car will cruise at about 40 miles an hour on the open highway, running on 91 grade unleaded fuel. Truly a very special quality British car, now living in Brisbane. The Carroll family are members of the Queensland Vintage Vehicle Association.